Summer release windows are rarely quiet. At this time of year, through major showcases, staggered AAA launches, and the constant churn of online discourse, even high-profile games can find themselves devoured in the Nexus. Yet, with its late May launch date, this is what makes 007 First Light's arrival interesting. Yeah, it's another big narrative-driven single-player experience with a huge license in the driving seat to boot. But it's also stepping into the spotlight at a moment which feels unusually opportune. See, its end of May window comes just after some of this month's biggest releases, but before July's heavy hitters, with June strangely vacant of competing titles, Gothic 1 Remake aside. In other words, First Light finds itself in a potentially powerful gap. It's also arriving at a time when big-budget single-player narratives seem to be at a crossroads, particularly as platform holders reassess where experiences of this ilk deliver the most value. Then against this backdrop, 007 himself is under the microscope, where a meta discussion on which actor will portray the next Bond is feverishly growing now amongst Amazon's MGM Studios, which has officially begun casting for the next movie. And looping this back to the game, First Light's own Bond actor is generating discussion for how he's characterizing young 007's persona. However, all these factors aren't blurring First Light's trajectory, but instead they're focusing its landing, giving it a chance to cut through meaningfully beyond its set-in-stone release date. If it does land well, a relatively quiet early summer won't be the only factor. Competition is varied, players are more receptive than usual to story-driven blockbusters, and away from games, Bond's future is squarely in the crosshairs. Still, there's no denying the final weeks of May are packed. Forza Horizon 6 arrived 19th of May to rapturous reception, followed closely by LEGO Batman Legacy of the Dark Knight, which, judging by numerous reviews, is poised to release the franchise's strongest ambition to date. 007 First Light launches May 27th, making 3 high-profile releases within just over a week. But volume doesn't necessarily mean direct competition. See, in Forza Horizon 6's case, the open-world arcade racer occupies its own lane, a sprawling motorsport festival with a broad systems-heavy appeal. LEGO Batman, meanwhile, leans into family-friendly design, cooperative play, and the enduring pull of superhero fiction. Both are significant, but neither overlaps meaningfully with First Light's offering. And overlap is the key word here. Modern release calendars are less about avoiding competing titles entirely, but minimizing overlap. Publishers would rather avoid fighting with other titles for limited headspace. Just look at the countless end-of-year reshuffles that are making room for Grand Theft Auto 6's unstoppable juggernaut. In this sense, 007 First Light isn't so much entering a crowded battlefield, but carving a space of its own. The question then doesn't ask if late May is too busy, but whether 007's first game in more than a decade can capitalize on being the only major title set to deliver a specific, narrative-focused, character-driven experience. And once it's out, as we've already alluded, June looks relatively light on competitors too. So, if it reviews well, its clips drive social media engagement and online discussion remains positive, then the lead into July could become First Light's exclusive runway. It'll steadily grow its presence before its first credible competitor in Assassin's Creed Black Flag Resynced emerges on July 9th. The only potential spanner in the works is Summer Game Fest, which is set to flood your timeline with new announcements, world premieres, and updates for upcoming titles from June 5th onwards, diverting attention away from 007 First Light. But while the industry continues to look ahead, perennially as it does, First Light has immediacy. It's playable now, whereas all those future titles showcased in Summer Game Fest are not. And again, if First Light lands well and retains attention, by the time Summer Game Fest rolls around, the game should have addressed one of its main misconceptions. See, despite what the online discourse says, 007 First Light is not Hitman reskinned as James Bond. IO Interactive has worked diligently to ensure the experience feels distinct from each other, in pacing, structure, and tone alike. First Light is a linear experience which approaches, at times, on rails design, where exploratory sections lead measuredly into explosive set pieces. It's as far removed from Agent 47's all-you-can-eat murder buffet as IO Interactive could muster, putting the game in similar territory to Uncharted, albeit with broader options for different playstyles than Naughty Dog's action-adventure series. At a time when narrative-heavy single-player games are at a crossroads, this distinction matters more than you would think. See, while Sony reportedly rethinks the PS5 to PC pipeline, citing single-player exclusives as driving hardware sales, 007 First Light as a prestige single-player third-party game has an even greater chance to stand out. As strategies consistently fluctuate and product confidence ebbs and flows, First Light isn't just releasing at a time where overlap with other titles is diminished, but potentially during an identity gap in the AAA single-player space. And another strong differentiator is Patrick Gibson himself as Bond. While reactions to his version of Bond haven't been unanimously positive, to put it mildly, with a smug, unearned confidence overshadowing his portrayal, IO Interactive instead claim his divisive, sometimes abrasive characterization is deliberate. Don't forget, First Light's Bond is young and reckless. He's not yet jaded by countless hard years working as the stoic spy we know from the movies. IO Interactive's stance is that any division Patrick Gibson's portrayal generates is good. Their rationale, playing it safe, isn't memorable, and their point of view mirrors the game itself, alongside the industry at large. It's not Hitman, it's not a traditional Bond. 007 First Light is taking risks to ensure it's unforgettable. And IO Interactive's quiet confidence is underlined by the game reaching gold status early, a surefire sign that First Light is well placed to hit the ground running with minimal hiccups. In an era where broken launches and post-release fixes are the norm, confirmation that development is complete and the game is ready to ship should transfer some of the studio's confidence onto you, the player. See, studios don't always get the luxury of extra polish time before release, but when they do, and when gold status arrives early, it's a sign of internal stability. Taken alongside its distinct direction, narrative-led design, and divisive take on Bond, going gold represents a broader impression. This is a game that knows what it wants to be, made by a studio that isn't afraid to stand by it. So to sum up, 007 First Light isn't launching into an empty window. However, it may not need to. Tailing a crowded yet segmented May, but preceding a surprisingly open June and a July that arrives just late enough, the game has genuine opportunity to establish itself before conversation shifts elsewhere, presuming it keeps its head afloat during Summer Game Fest. More importantly, its potential doesn't rest on calendar timing alone. No, 007 First Light showcases a deliberately divergent identity, with IO Interactive even embracing the divisive reaction to its take on Bond. At a time when big-budget single-player games are in another state of transition, IO Interactive could yet prove that playing it safe is what invites your own death knell after all. Being brave and fully committing to potentially abrasive design decisions are, perhaps, the open secret to success, which more studios should follow. Hey, did you know that we at GamingBolt upload new videos every day? Stick around, drop a like, subscribe, and hit that bell. And let us know what kind of content you'd like to see in the future with a comment below.